Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. What if Naruto was hunted by a deadly assassin who fell in love with him? Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Sakura. Mom, come outside. 10-year-old Sakura ran up to her house and threw open the front door. Come see what I learned today. Her mom turned around with a pained smile. Sakura was way too excited to notice it. Okay sweetie, just 1 second. Sakura turned and bolted back outside. When her mom came out, Sakura was facing a tree 15 feet away from her with a shuriken in her right hand. Sakura looked over her shoulder and smiled. Mom, are you ready? Her mom crossed her arms and nodded. Sakura put her attention back on the tree and took a deep breath. She took a step forward, pulled her right hand across to her opposite shoulder and with a flick of her arm the shuriken was sent flying towards the tree. It hit smack dab in the center of the bark. Sakura quickly turned around and started jumping up and down excitedly. Mom, did you see that? Wasn't that amazing? Sakura's face couldn't be happier. Her mom clapped a few times. That was splendid, sweetheart. She was smiling, but it seemed forced. Sakura didn't see the happy approval in her mom's eyes that she thought she had earned. Mom, are you okay? You don't look like you're happy for me. Disappointment started to flow through Sakura. Her mom sighed. Oh Sakura, I don't know how to tell you this. Sakura was confused. Tell me what, Mom. Her mom took a couple steps backward and sat down on the porch steps and patted the spot next to her her hand. Come sit next to me. Sakura cautiously made her way over to her mother and sat down. Her mom put her arm around her and pulled her close. Sakura, you won't be attending your Team 7 practices anymore. Quote. Sakura wasn't sure if she had heard her mother right. What are you talking about? Sakura, we have to move. And by move, I mean move out of this village and even out of the fire country. Sakura's mind started to shut down. Mom, you're just kidding, right? She turned to look at her mother and found the hard truth in her eyes. But why? I was just put on Team 7. Tears started to well up in Sakura's eyes. You can't do this. Sakura abruptly stood up. I refuse to go with you. I am not leaving my home. By the end of her statement, Sakura's tears had become a waterfall. I'm not going. She turned and ran in the opposite direction of her house as fast as her legs could carry her. 13 years later. Sakura sat on the grass by a fire cleaning the blood off of her weapons. Or more specifically, her sword. She always used it on her assassination missions. It made for an easy finish. She was wearing her usual attire. An elbow-length tight, red shirt covered by her gray Junin jacket flat and finished off with her black spandex shorts that stopped at her knees. She never failed to wrap her forearms with white bandages. It became a habit of hers when she first became a genin. Sakura had been made Junin 7 years ago. At 16 years old, she was the youngest Junin assassin the Hidden Mist village has ever had. At 23, her power and ability rivals most other Junin and Anbu members, not to mention she is the top medic in her village. She's heard rumors here and there about her being the next Mizukage. She didn't know about that one, but respect was something she didn't have to worry about. Another easy target, Sakura thought. It seems they just keep getting weaker and weaker. After the Mizukage recognized Sakura's ability, she's always been the first one called when an assassination mission came up. To say that Sakura is busy is an understatement. She almost never has time for herself anymore. For the past 5 years, the most time that Sakura has spent in her village during one period is 2 days. The first year of assassinations was the hardest. Sakura would curl up in her tent each night after she killed her target and cry herself to sleep. She's not sure when it happened, but one night the crying stopped. Since that night, Sakura has been able to complete every mission without blinking. She's not even sure when the last time she truly laughed was. Sakura has never had a true friend. She was 10 years old when she moved to the Mist Village. By then, best friends were already chosen. Not to mention that she was born in a rival country. Nobody wanted to associate themselves with a family from the famous Konoha. Her family was treated like outcasts for the first year. The closest to a friend Sakura has ever had was a boy from her old team when she lived in Konoha. She couldn't for the life of her remember his name or what he looked like. She did remember, however, that he was intolerably annoying. The sun was beginning to sink from its high position in the sky. It would be sunset soon. She quickly gathered and packed up all of her stuff. Sakura preferred to travel during sunset. It kept her mind focused on all of the abstract colors in the sky. She wasn't that far from her village. It would only take her 3 hours to reach it with a slow run. Sakura quickly put out the fire, secured her backpack to her back and began heading east toward Mist. When she was 50 feet away from the village gates, she slowed her pace down to a walk. As she passed the guard station, one of the two guards, Tsuchi, said, "Hey, Sakura. You're back earlier than expected." Sakura looked over and smirked. "Aren't I always?" Tsuchi grinned. "Touché. Would you like me to inform the Mizukage?" Sakura shook her head. "I would actually like a little bit of sleep before she decides to give me another mission." Quote. Tsuchi nodded and smiled sincerely. "Understood. Good night, Sakura." "Good night, Tsuchi, Akasan," Sakura replied as she set off to her apartment. Sakura walked at a slow pace towards her apartment. She still lived with her parents. She wasn't home enough to have her own apartment. Besides, she enjoyed coming home to her loving parents, her cozy bed, and her mom's fantastic cooking. It was definitely something to look forward to. Before she reached the front door, it was swung open to reveal her parents with huge smiles on their faces. "Welcome home, sweetie," they both exclaimed. Her mom practically tackled her while her dad came around and put his arms around Sakura and his wife. This is the best part of coming home, Sakura smiled to herself. Her parents had never failed in giving her a small, welcome home, celebration. Her parents were the reason that she could handle being an assassin. Even after Sakura's emotions had been locked away, they always knew how to release them, even if it was just for a day or two. Her mom grabbed her hand and started pulling her inside. "Come on, Sakura. Dinner is almost ready." Now that she mentioned it, Sakura did smell something wonderful coming from the kitchen. "How was your mission, Sakura?" her dad casually asked. "Ya know, Dad, they just keep getting easier to kill. They're not even a challenge anymore." Sakura shrugged. "Sweetie, I think you're just getting that much stronger." Sakura looked up at her dad as he winked. "Sakura, you know you're the strongest ninja of your age and many more." "Yes, Dad. You know I don't like to talk about it." "You don't have to be modest all of the time, Sakura. You can always brag to your very proud parents." Her dad smiled. "And proud we are. Dinner is ready." Sakura's mom poked her head out of the doorway. As her family sat down, Sakura had to stop herself from immediately stuffing food down her throat. She was starving. When she's on missions, she only eats enough to keep herself strong enough to fight. Being impatient, Sakura reached out to take her parents' hands and quickly said grace. "I can see our daughter is hungry, Ayumi." "Good. Maybe that means we won't have any leftovers," Sakura's mom giggled. "Ah, but leftovers are always good for breakfast," Sakura pointed out. Sakura's mom looked at her and smiled gently. "I love having you back. You're not the only one," her dad added as he patted Sakura on the shoulder. "So, what was your latest target like? Who was he a threat to anyway?" Ayumi coughed. "Hiroshi." Sakura looked down at her plate. "Dad, I'd rather not talk about it." "Oh, right. Sorry, sweetheart." Her dad coughed awkwardly. "Shiro has gotten a lot stronger. He passed the Chunin exam last week. I'm sure he'd be ecstatic to tell you about it." Sakura's head snapped up at the mention of Shiro. "Really? Did y'all watch it?" she asked curiously. Her mom spoke up. "Oh yes. He had no problem defeating his opponent in the final match." Sakura smiled. "Shiro is growing up." Shiro was more or less Sakura's adopted brother. He's never really had any friends due to a rumor that his father killed one of the village's elders when he was 5 years old. The accusation was never proven true, but nobody went to the trouble to prove it wrong, either. His father was forced out of the village and Shiro has never seen him since. Sakura had found him one day swinging alone. She had basically adopted him. His mother had gone into a depression and began isolating herself. For a few months, Sakura's parents had even let him stay in their house while his mother recovered. That was 10 years ago. Ever since then they've had an unbreakable bond. Oh, I almost forgot to mention. Lady May is currently the sensei of a genin team. Her mother added. Sakura's eyes widened. No way. I thought she said that she would never be a sensei of a genin team. She said it would defy her age. She playfully rolled her eyes. Her father shrugged. I have no idea where the change of mind came from. Sakura's face brightened. I can't wait to ask her about it. Sakura, honey, don't you want to keep your job as an assassin? Sakura giggled. I was just kidding, Mom. I'm smarter than that. She sighed and stood up. I think I'm gonna go ahead and go to bed. I feel like I'm going to just fall over at any moment. Quote. Her mom walked over and took Sakura's dinner plate from her hands. Well, you go ahead. Don't worry about the dishes tonight, sweetie. You deserve your rest. Ayumi leaned over and kissed her daughter's cheek. Good night, Sakura. Her dad stood up and patted her back. We won't wake you in the morning. Sakura smiled at her father. Thanks, Dad, but don't be surprised if I'm already gone by the time y'all wake up. I have a feeling the Mizukage already knows I'm back. Her father chuckled. I wouldn't be at all surprised. Good night, Mom, Dad. I love you. Sakura shouted as she climbed the stairs to her room. We love you too. Her mom shouted back. Hiroshi walked over and put an arm around his wife. I don't think that there's a better daughter out there. We are the best parents ever, of course. Ayumi and her husband made eye contact and burst into laughter. The second Sakura walked through her bedroom door, she began peeling off her clothes. By the time she made it to her bathroom, she was completely. She turned on the shower and looked at her reflection as she waited for the shower to heat up. She really needed some time off from these missions. They have really taken a toll on her complexion. These dark circles will never go away. Sakura turned away from the mirror and stepped into the shower. She let the hot water run over every inch of her body. She couldn't remember the last time a shower felt this good. It began to slowly relax her muscles. What she needed was a nice trip to the hot springs and a long massage afterward. She spent another 2 minutes in the shower before getting out and drying herself off. When she walked back into her room, she threw on a t-shirt, a pair of panties, and climbed into bed. The second her head hit the pillow, Sakura was gone. When Sakura opened her eyes the next morning, she looked over at her clock. 12 p.m. She threw off the covers and jumped out of bed. Sakura froze. There was another presence in her room. She whipped around and found Chojuro staring at her with wide eyes. Sakura glared and pointed at him. You, how long have you been here? Chojuro began stuttering. Since 7 o'clock. Sakura fumed. Since 7, what have you been doing? Just standing there like an idiot. She began running around her room finding a decent outfit to wear. When she found something appropriate, she ran into her bathroom and slammed her door. 10 seconds later, she stormed out of the bathroom and stomped up to Chojuro and grabbed the neck of his shirt. Why are you here? Chojuro coughed and tried to steady his voice. Lady May has summoned you. Sakura narrowed her eyes. If I get in trouble for being late, your hope of having a family will be extinguished. Ya hear me? She flicked her wrist and Chojuro went flying into her wall. Truth be told, Chojuro was terrified of her. He hadn't wanted to wake her up because he didn't want to end up in this situation. Ironic. Sakura was out of her window and running toward the Mizukage Tower in 2 seconds. Poor Chojuro, she thought, I really should treat him better. She shrugged it off and pushed her legs faster. When she reached the doors, she kept her pace and barged through. She kept running through the building until she reached the Mizukage's office door. Sakura took a deep breath and knocked 3 times. Come in, Sakura. Sakura opened the door and walked a couple steps until she was standing a few feet away from the Mizukage's desk. She made a small bow in show of respect. If you don't mind me asking, how did you know it was me, my lady? May smiled. Oh Sakura, I've known your chakra signature for quite a while now. I just decided to test my knowledge. And it seems I was right. The Mizukage cleared her throat. But we have no time to waste with small talk. You are already behind. Why are you late? And I trust you completely your last mission. I am most sorry. Chojuro decided to stand in my room for 5 hours and watch me sleep. And yes, my lady. Mission successful. Sakura rolled her eyes. May nodded. He's scared of you, ya know. He was probably fighting himself on whether or not he should wake you. Anyways, stop distracting me. I know you're probably exhausted from all of the back-to-back missions, but I have just received one that I trust only you to complete. I understand. Your new target is a ninja from the Hidden Leaf Village. You will meet him in the Hidden Frost Village to partner with him in assassinating a different target. He has the information on this target. After the both of you succeed in eliminating him or her, you are to assassinate the Leaf Ninja. And you'll need a code name. I trust you to choose one that's appropriate. Sakura nodded. Why is this target a threat? He is the Leaf's Jinchuriki and rumored to be the next Hokage. He is one of the strongest shinobi in this world. Plus, the Mist and Leaf aren't getting along too well right now, and it's best to keep the power equal. When do I leave? You should have left 4 hours ago. Thank you, Lady May. Sakura bowed and was out the door before May could blink. She smiled. I think she's my favorite shinobi. Sakura reached her home in record time. She searched around her room for her weapons pouch and sword. Once she found it, she attached the pouch to her waist and tachi to her back and began searching for her essentials. She packed a few pairs of panties, an extra bra, a t-shirt to sleep in, and her few necessary toiletries. She'll have to wash her current outfit every night. Once she was sure she had everything she needed, she exited through her window and jumped down to the street. She turned around and took a long look at her home. Sakura had a funny feeling that she wouldn't be seeing it for a while. Bye, Mom. Bye, Dad. Sakura grinned. Without a second glance, she began walking towards the gates. Leaving already, Sakura? Akasan asked. Sakura shrugged. Are you really surprised? Akasan and Tsuchi both chuckled. No, not at all, Akasan replied. Sakura continued walking through the gates. Without turning around, she waved. I'll see y'all in a few days. Keep the village safe for me. Naruto. 2 days later. Swinging the kunai in his hand, he flipped it back and forth, staring out into the horizon. The sun's light was just beginning to peek out of the mountains and illuminate the whole valley. The woods here were never silent. There was always noise, whether it was birds or the sound of the wind pushing the trees around. He could faintly hear the rushing of a river nearby. With his left hand he ran his fingers through his blonde hair, nervously. It would be a heavenly place if it weren't stuck in the middle of hell. Shaking his head side to side, Naruto took a deep breath. He turned back towards the forest where a man awaited him. He gazed at the outline of a body lying awkwardly on the ground. The man was bound by his hands and feet. Normal rope would have held him, but Naruto decided to use chakra binds. The man was currently unconscious. His slow and deliberate breathing showed it. Any minute now, he thought hastily. He continued rotating the weapon around his finger, watching the metal swing with great concentration. Naruto shifted his weight into his left foot. Then the right, and back to left again. He coughed, getting rather impatient. However, the faster rising and falling of the man's chest told Naruto he was about to awaken. Twirling the weapon through his fingers once more, Naruto leaned against a nearby tree and waited. The man on the ground groaned and rolled over onto his back. While the man struggled to regain his surroundings, Naruto took this time to marvel his handiwork. His flesh was flawless, no bruises. In fact, it was quite easy to capture him. The man did, however, have a long cut across his cheek. It had happened when Naruto thought the man could have easily dodged it, but was proven wrong. This man was a rogue Junin of the sound, for Christ's sake. The man opened his eyes slowly. They widened a fraction of an inch. At first, he looked around calmly. Then he tried to jump to his feet, only to fail and land on his knees. As if hearing the metal of Naruto's twirling kunai scrape past his fingers, the man turned ever so slowly to face him. His eyes widened once they came in contact with Naruto's bright blue ones. Why you? He stammered, shrinking back at the sight of the blonde Junin. Naruto merely raised an eyebrow at the man. Truth be told, he didn't enjoy these missions, but then again, this is what an assassin does. As a kid he was always so hyperactive. He still is. But, with age comes maturity. As soon as he takes the scroll with the name of the target, he is no longer the Naruto Uzumaki everyone knows. He stopped twirling the kunai. The handle of the metal twisted so it was back into his palm as he wrapped his fingers around it. His eyes hardening, dramatically. The man, sensing his death, shrank back even further from Naruto. He gave the man a sly smile. Crouching slightly, He brought the weapon up to arm level. Unknown to the man on the ground, the real Naruto was already behind him. He used his legendary technique, a shadow clone. It surprised him that the man did not realize the fake. Must be of his lack of continuous training, his mind offered. Shrugging his shoulders back, Naruto pulled the blade up. The bound man's eyes stayed glued to the fake Naruto in front of him. Naruto approached from behind and quickly ran the blade of his kunai across his prisoner's throat. Never knowing of the danger, the man slumped forward, dead. It was better that way. He didn't believe in cold murder. No one deserved that kind of treatment. Naruto glanced at the clone that exploded into a mass of smoke. Wiping his brow, he dropped the bloodied metal beside the man's lifeless body and untied his hands and feet. Appeared suicide, no questions asked. He stared at the body a little while longer. Just another name. Just another body to eliminate. Who knows what this man's life had in store for him? Naruto tried not to linger on those thoughts. It was for his village that he swore a duty to protect. And he would, even at the cost of his sanity. He felt his old smile return to his lips as he turned to walk away from the scene. It was a good 40-mile run back to the Leaf Village. Maybe sooner, if he sprinted. He pushed his legs upward and landed softly on a branch that was hanging over his head. He was in no rush, so he decided a slow run would suffice. Jumping from branch to branch, he allowed his thoughts to wander. 2 years ago, he received his army green Junin vest and the responsibilities that came with it. The position was just another building block towards becoming Hokage, and he was glad to accept it. Heck, maybe one day he'll have his own team of genin. A light laugh escaped his mouth at the thought of it. He could hardly remember his teammates. The girl, whose name he couldn't remember for the life of him, moved or something, so he never got close to her. Sasuke left to join Orochimaru in search of power to destroy his older brother. In this life, Naruto was always alone, but his friends and fellow teammates made it worth it. Running out of thick trees to use to propel him forward, he jumped onto the ground and continued his jogging back home. He hoped that maybe, just maybe, he could keep others from the pain he has suffered. Being branded a monster at birth wasn't a nice ordeal. But then again, some sacrifices for others' happiness was kinda worth it. An uneasy feeling crept over him. I'm not alone. Out of his peripheral vision he noticed a kunai speeding towards him. He didn't think, just acted. Muttering a few words and hand signs, he jumped into the air just as a clone took his previous position. Landing quietly on a tree branch above, he watched the clone block the weapon with a kunai of his own, while the real Naruto searched for the owner of the weapon. His defenses were up, adrenaline pounding through his veins, his heartbeat could be heard from his ears. The kunai had come pretty close to his head, but he relaxed and rolled his eyes when he saw a teenager approach the clone. Almost got you there, huh, Naruto? Konohamaru exclaimed. He watched his clone scoff and reply, hardly. There's not a scratch on me. His clone smiled, looking all over his body. Well, you just wait. You won't be so lucky next time. He yelled, pointing a finger at the clone, then hurrying off into a different direction out of sight. Sighing, he smacked his head. God, Naruto, that was close. Pay more attention. Naruto jumped down from the tree and approached his clone, who had his arms behind his head, looking completely relaxed. His aiming skills have gotten better. The clone remarked. Yay, yay, Naruto said as the clone dispersed into the air. Naruto walked the rest of the way. The village gates were not far ahead. The giant doors were propped open as he passed by the guardhouse. Back already, Naruto? The guard asked, looking completely bored out of his mind. Yay, nothing I can't handle, he told the guard, smiling. By the way, the guard called out when Naruto kept walking inward into the village. The Hokage wanted to speak with you once you returned. It seemed urgent. That old hag? He asked with complete innocence. Jesus, Naruto, you're the only one who can get away with calling her names. He remarked. Guess that means I have to hurry. Huh, Naruto yelled back, as he passed the guard station and continued inwards to village. I would recommend it, he said as his voice faded out as Naruto began to run towards the tower. But instead of a left to the Hokage Tower, he took a right. He approached a wide building with the title, Konoha Intelligence Headquarters. He pushed open the door and entered a plain reception room. Walking to the edge of the counter, he rang the bell 3 times. When he saw someone start to approach the desk, he continued ringing the bell. God, would you cut that out, you idiot? Ino said, coming to meet him. I could, but I'm not, Naruto said, smiling, ringing the bell again. Can I help you? Or are you here just to bother all of us again? She rolled her eyes. Well, I'm actually here to see Shikamaru. If you could tell him to get his lazy in here. He smiled. That would be great. He half expected her to turn around and go get him. But the other half was proven right when she screamed his name at the top of her lungs. Nothing. Naruto's eyebrow rose. Ino shook her head and then bellowed his name once more. A stumbling figure emerged. What? Naruto is here to see you. She added at a more inside voice, before disappearing further into the building. Troublesome woman, Shikamaru muttered under his breath. Yes, Naruto, he asked, scratching the back of his head. Taking a nap already? It's only 8 in the morning. Naruto shook his head disapprovingly. Actually, it's 9, Shikamaru corrected. Naruto grin disappeared as he got more serious. The favor you asked for me. He started and Shikamaru leaned in the hear better. I checked the man. No reports, no scrolls. He was clean. Looks like more faulty intel, Shikamaru. Shikamaru sighed, tiredly. Great. He muttered sarcastically. I'll have to start back from square one. Naruto nodded and rolled his eyes, remembering Tsunade wanted to see him. Look, I have to go. Is there anything else you need me to do? Naruto asked as he began to walk backwards away from the counter. Shikamaru shook his head. No, but thanks. No problem, Naruto called out as he exited the door. But once again, he avoided his real destination as he made his way to his home. He just needed to pick up a few things. After all, he was gone for 3 days. And God knows what that old hag is going to have him do. He made it to his house in pretty remarkable time. Unlocking the door, he made his way in. He needed to restock his arsenal. Naruto lost 2 good kunai from his last mission. Pulling open a drawer by his front door, he pulled out 2 metal kunai and put them in his pouch. Naruto clipped the flap back in place and glanced over at his glass cabinet where various priceless weapons were on display. Noticing his katana, he pulled open the glass and wrapped his fingers around it. He pulled it up to eye level. The metal made a sharp scrape sound as he unsheathed it. I guess I'll carry you, he said to himself, as he slid the metal back in. He had gotten this weird feeling he would need it. He strapped it to his back and walked back over to the front door. Looking around once more for anything else, he stopped. Weather is supposed to drop tonight. He'll need a jacket. Naruto didn't have to look far. A black cloak with orange flames rising from the bottom laid over a chair in the corner. Slowly he picked up the material. It was his father's, one of the few items that he left him. Naruto slipped into the material and glanced at the mirror. His eyes widened as he turned to stare at the reflection that looked back at him. It had been months since he last took a glance at his appearance. He wore a black undershirt with long sleeves and black pants that stopped at his ankles. White tape was strapped around one of his thighs, holding a kunai. Over the black was his green Junin vest. His cloak only added to the appearance of a man he would never forget. He looked just like his father. The only difference was his shorter hair. A dull pain picked at the edges of his defenses. He tore his eyes from the reflection. And without a second thought he exited his house. He changed his course for the Hokage Tower and walked at faster than normal speed. He heard random people call out his name, but for once, he didn't return the greeting. Granny Tsunade's request to see him made him curious. Why was it so sudden? Entering the tower, he quickly scaled the stairs and stopped at her office where a Chunin stood guard. Naruto Uzumaki, he asked. The one and only. She has been expecting you. He nodded and opened the door. Naruto walked in and casually stood standing up facing the Hokage's desk, his arms crossed. Granny, he said, his eyes looking down at the ground. She turned around in her chair and faced him, her fingers lacing together as her chin rested on them. Her eyes widened a fraction of an inch looking at him. You're late, again, she remarked. He smiled, his lips pulling back into a wide grin. What did you expect? Maybe you would mature a little. And show up when your Hokage asks you to. she reasoned, raising her eyebrows. I am mature, he defended. How was your mission? She asked, leaning back in her chair. Surprisingly easy. More so than normal, he stated. Suska Hagane eliminated. Good, she replied and leaned forward, putting her elbows on the desk. It was silent for a few more seconds before she continued to speak. I have another mission for you, she stated, simply. Already, he couldn't bite back the response. He knew in the back of his mind it would be another mission. But he had really hoped the feeling was wrong. Yes, S-ranked mission, she told him. Assassination, she nodded, but didn't move for a file containing the target's information like usual. Instead, she just stared at him. All I have for you is a name, Tsunade said. Great, he muttered sarcastically. You may remember her, she started but Naruto cut her off. Her? He asked. He wasn't. It just surprised him a female could be S-ranked. There were not many girls that strong anymore. But Tsunade continued on, she used to be part of your genin team. But she and her family left the village long ago. She stood up approaching him. What is the reason for the assassination? He asked, curiosity getting the best of him. Tsunade looked hesitant but complied. As an ex-ninja of the Hidden Leaf, she poses a threat. We don't know how much she knows. Naruto spoke before she could finish. Why now? It's been close to 10 years since I was on my genin team. She glared at him. If you would let me finish, you would know. Sorry, he remarked, smiling. Not sorry at all. I've heard reports that she has gotten stronger. Close to rivaling me in medical ninjutsu. She said, not saying anything further. She was hiding something, but he didn't question what it was. A ninja from the Hidden Mist will be assisting you. Hidden Mist? Is this a move for an alliance? Naruto asked, surprise across his features. I don't know, but be on your guard. They offered it. I couldn't say no, it would be like a war distrusting them or something. She smiled slightly. He rolled his eyes at the thought of working with a Hidden Mist ninja. You will have to make up a code name. I don't trust them enough for them to know who you really are. She stated. Code name, he confirmed, thinking of all the different possibilities of names. Yes, Naruto, I'm sure you will have a lot of fun with that, but make sure it sounds real. She almost begged and Naruto laughed. Destination, you will meet up with the Mist Nin in Frost Country. From there you will explain the mission. She said. Attire. What you're wearing, it will be easier for the Mist Ninja to know. She pointed to his army green vest, then sighed. I do have a certain piece of information that I or may not be helpful. She did have a nervous tick. She would chew on the inside of her mouth when she got jumpy or scared. She made it pretty obvious too. Naruto nodded. I'm sorry, you don't have time to change. She is a high-class threat, and this information is already days late. Not to mention you took your sweet time getting here. You leave now, she commanded with a flick of her wrist. Wait, the name? He asked. Oh, yes, of course. She said, muttering something about old age. Her name is Sakura Haruno. Now go. Yes, ma'am, he confirmed and formed hand signs and disappeared out of the room. Tsunade turned and faced the window, her hands clasped behind her back. Be careful, Naruto, this girl is stronger than you realize. Naruto. The sun was already sliding back behind the mountain. He grunted, increasing his pace towards the Fire Country border. His plan was to stop at the border and set up camp. Being on the fire border meant less attacks in the middle of the night. Not that he couldn't handle it or anything, but he was really tired from transitioning from mission to mission and didn't feel like dealing with a surprise attack. He knew his guard could drop for the slightest second, and even that was enough for someone to ambush him. From the border he would continue into Hot Springs Country before finally ending in Frost Country, where he would meet his counterpart. Which he was not looking forward to at all. All Mist Nin seemed to be overly. The trees had started to get thinner with each step he took. With the light almost gone, it was getting harder to see. He moaned at the thought that the Hokage was right, that being late to receive the mission would put back hours. He increased his pace even more to compensate for his actions. Almost there, he told himself out loud. It was silly to talk to himself. But it was the only thing that seemed to keep him sane on these solo missions. When the border was within eye distance, he slowed down before finally stopping on a tree branch. Naruto dropped down to his feet and scanned the area. His eyes wandered around the trees around him. It was empty, as far as he could tell. The place looked as though no one had passed here before. His lips pulled back into a weak smile. He glad it was deserted. Deciding this was the best place to sleep, he removed 5 kunai from his back pouch. He placed them on the ground in a row and tied a piece of paper around the hilt of each one. Once finished, he made a few quick hand signs. An inky, black seal formed on the tied piece of paper. Leaning over, Naruto rolled all the weapons into one of his hands. Locating 5 different trees that surrounded him, he threw the metal towards the trunks. After they all hit their mark, Naruto lowered his arm back to his side. Finally deciding to live up to the legacy of his last name, he learned of a different type of paper bomb. The paper bomb would go off if any one person with a high chakra level passed by. Therefore, he would be alerted of someone's presence. But the bombs wouldn't activate if animals passed through because it wouldn't pick up the small force of chakra. Of course, this technique had some loopholes, but it was the best he had. He could always stay awake all night. But he didn't trust himself to not fall asleep. Sighing, realizing he wouldn't have a good meal due to his hope of staying unnoticed and a fire would attract attention, he popped some ratio N pills and took his cloak off. Slowly he reached around to untie his forehead protector and set it on the ground next to him as he sat down against a tree. The bark cut into his back and was not in the least bit comfortable. He really hoped this would be the last of the series of missions. Naruto rested the cloak in his lap and thought of the task he would have to complete tomorrow. Since he had a lot of ground to cover in a short amount of time, he decided he would wake up earlier. He then would have to meet the Mist Nin and search for Sakura. The only problem was he didn't have a clue where to start. All he had was a name and something to look out for. Why couldn't this be easier? His brain whined. There's that other thing, he thought. He would no longer be Uzumaki Naruto. Tomorrow he would be just Minato. He smiled slightly at the choice of his code name. It would be weird being called by his father's name, but he couldn't think of a better one. The name would leave no room for questions. His father was dead and no one knew the 4th Hokage had a son. He leaned back into the sharp bark of the tree as his eyes slowly drooped closed. With his mind full of questions and possibilities, he drifted off to sleep. A light was shining straight into his eyelids, so he squeezed them shut. But the action neither took the light away nor made it any more bearable. Why did he leave the curtains open? Shaking his head side to side, Naruto opened his eyes only to be blinded by a brilliant light. He groaned and rolled over onto his side, wondering why it was so bright. His eyes flew open as he searched for the source of light. It was sunlight. He glanced around. Trees. Where the heck am I? His memory began to flood back into his brain like a broken dam. His mind raced as he remembered where he was. Shit. He cursed, noticing the sun was almost high in the sky. You got to be kidding me. I slept in. He roared, tying his forehead protector around his head. He shoved his arms back into his cloak and brought his 2 fingers up to his mouth. Release. He shouted as the spellbound bombs popped, turning back into normal kunai. Running around, he tore the metal out from the trees. Shoving them back into his pouch, he took off across the border. He pushed his body even faster than the night before. He mentally kicked himself for losing a few good hours. Now he'll be lucky if he makes it by sundown. The extra sleep did indeed help his awareness, however. Naruto became even more cautious of his surroundings once the border was far behind him. He was no longer safe inside this country. Rogues were a threat and other countries didn't take too kindly to foreigners. He just hoped he'd make it across the border without running into problems. Naruto watched the road under him from the trees. It was a little merchant road, highly used by civilian travelers. He would see a civilian walking the road every now and then. He diverted his course from the road. The road led to the capital and Naruto was going in the almost opposite direction. It was sad to say he left the road with disappointment. Traveling was so boring to him. His mind would wander all over the place and seeing trees over and over again got annoying. Once, he had gotten so bored he counted every tree he saw, but stopped after 2000 before he completely lost his sanity. The temperature was starting to drop and he thanked his subconscious for telling him to take his cloak. A chill ran up his back, but it wasn't from the cold. He tried to ignore it. He almost always felt it when he left the country. It just bothered him. He couldn't exactly place the uneasy feeling. Pushing off of a tree branch, he again hoped this would be the last mission for a while. Naruto wanted a break from all of the killing. But he knew it wasn't just the killing. It was doing it alone, holding his burden in silence. For that reason he was glad a mist ninja was coming with him. But he hated the idea of someone else experiencing what happened to him on an almost daily basis. He was just beginning to think about his counterpart he would meet when he realized he was being followed. His uneasy feeling was finally confirmed. Naruto kept his current speed. He glanced to the side trying to get a read on the chakra figures following at a distance behind him. His eyes widened a fraction of an inch. 4 signatures. 4 were following him. Concentrating harder, he noticed 3 of which were considerably lower than the 4th. A genin team. His mind offered. Whichever, he just knew he couldn't avoid confrontation. Making hand signs he muttered, Kage Bushin no Jutsu. He jumped to the side as his shadow clone continued to jump from tree to tree. He focused his chakra on the clone and masked his own as he waited for the 4 followers. Just as predicted, he saw a young kid jump by first, then an older man, followed by 2 other kids. His instinctive skills kicking in, he checked their appearances. Naruto stared at their forehead protectors. Rock ninja, he muttered as he watched them go. Why would they be so far away from their village? His mind questioned. In order to figure out what to do next, he would have to know what he was up against. To judge the group's strength, he looked at the appearance of each one. The leading boy had brown hair and was obviously the troublemaker of the team. His stance was powerful and straightforward. The genin made no effort to hide his footfalls. The kid reminded Naruto of his self back in his younger years. Behind was the girl. She had a determined look upon her face as she followed the boy. Between her fingers were 3 shuriken. Naruto ruled her out as a main concern in the group. Having her weapon already drawn meant that she was insecure of her surroundings and lacked confidence, which was fatal in any fight. Next to her was the final genin. He wore glasses with red hair. His facial features were grim as he constantly glanced around at his surroundings. He gave Naruto the impression he was the brains of the team, but seemed to be overcautious. Naruto checked the whole genin team off as harmless. His eyes moved over to stop at the adult of the team. The Junin of the group had his eyebrows pulled tight together in concentration. The way his eyebrows twitched, Naruto imaged the man thinking of a plan of action against the leaf nin they were tailing. He had sideburns and appeared to be young for a Junin. He must have been assigned his team just recently. What really stuck out was a sword strapped to his back. It was huge. He marked him as a potential threat if it came to a fight. He rolled his eyes and tailed them, trying to pick up on their conversation. Naruto kept his chakra signature low and stayed at a distance, keeping just within hearing distance. Sensei, let's get him already. He hasn't even noticed us. The lead ninja yelled excitedly. Shut up, you idiot. He'll hear us, the female of the genin team remarked. Quiet, both of you, the sensei barked, silencing the 2 from bickering further. The boy, who hadn't said a word, spoke up. Why do you think a leaf shinobi is so far from his village? Quote. The sensei shook his head. I have no idea. Naruto, sensing the group meant no real harm, had his clone slow down. If it did come to a fight, these genin seemed new to the whole idea of a team and it would be easy to fight them off. However, he would do everything in his power to keep it from getting to that. His clone came to a stop and drew his kunai as if surprised by the group following. The team of rock ninjas slid to a stop and drew their weapons as well. It was quiet as the sides stared at one another. Why are you tailing me? His clone called out. What is your purpose in the land of hot springs? The older man yelled. I could ask you the same. His clone pointed out. We are returning from a mission. Your course is towards Lightning Country. I think we have a right to know. He argued. Naruto's double just stared at the group with narrowed eyes. He couldn't give away any part of his mission. Especially to Rock Nin. What was left of his hope of just walking away started to take a dive for the worst. The leaf and rock don't see eye to eye and he was too suspicious looking. You will tell us. The loudmouth boy from earlier yelled, charging at his clone. With angry shouts from his team, the boy continued to charge toward Naruto's sea.